Hey, what's up? This is Joshua, daily video blog. I got my Moose and Sadie's iced coffee. It's all good. I've already made one video traipsing through the mosquito-infested greenery by the Mississippi, but I was thinking about something else, so we're gonna do video number 2. And I was thinking about making do with what you have and what you have access to, and still being able to sort of like have standards and excellence. And so I want to talk about Peter Saville's cover for the first Joy Division album, Unknown Pleasures. So Peter Saville, the British designer, he's largely defined by this record cover that he made in 1978 or something. He was probably 22, 23 years old, not very old. He's defined by this thing. And if for some reason you live on a rock or under a rock and you don't know what the cover of Unknown Pleasures looks like, you have 100%, you're guaranteed to have seen it. So just Google Unknown Pleasures and you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that was the Joy Division cover. So Saville, he's defined by this record that in one way is groundbreaking because it has no type on the cover, which if you think about in a world where you only probably knew about records either from a handful of magazines or fanzines maybe, and from flipping through stacks, it seems like a very radical and bold move. But there used to be a great video where Saville explained the process of designing that cover, and I want to go through it really briefly, because there's some important lessons to learn from it. So Saville is essentially a partner in Factory Records, who at this point had put out maybe a kind of a double split 7-inch with 4 bands on it, one of which was Joy Division, and his job is essentially the visualist for the label. So Saville's going to design the Joy Division cover. It's going to be the first LP on Factory Records, and the band gives him a manila folder filled with stuff. So it's got this image, this kind of like graph looking image that's I believe, I can't remember the technical name, but it's essentially a diagram of the death of a star. And then there's a photograph of like a shadowy figure running down a hallway. That I believe is a Gordon Parks photo. It escapes me right now. So Saville is given this stuff, and if you listen to him describe how he made the decisions, it's really simple. So he's trying to figure out how to work this graphic, this narrow, kind of topographic looking image into the cover. And he realizes is what he says he did and what he actually did, I believe, are two different things. He says that the image on the cover is exactly the size of the actual thing he was given. And the thing he was given was black toner on white paper, black ink on white paper or whatever, and he printed it white on black. Now he claims that he was using a photostat machine and didn't know how to enlarge the image, and then it automatically inverted it. I'm not buying that for a second. If you have ever seen like a bootleg live Joy Division cover, you have seen this same graphic, what it looks like when it is blown up big. If you've seen it on a t-shirt, you've seen how whack it looks when it's blown up big. So Saville has this 12-inch, this sea of whites of black space, and he puts the graphic on the cover fairly small, maybe 3 by 6 inches, something like that, and it's striking, and it kind of melts into the cover, and the negative space, the implied lines that connect to the edges of the sort of sonar pulses, they make a beautiful little kind of coffin-y shape. So basically he applies like unbelievably refined and skillful placement of this graphic, and then he doesn't put type on the cover, and he explains really simply why he didn't put type in the cover. Where are you going to put it? Anywhere you put it, it ruins the cover. And again, all you have to do Look at like a shitty Joy Division t-shirt that has that graphic on the cover with type. It looks like garbage. Look at again, sort of like bootleg live records where they take that graphic and they put type on the cover. It looks like shit. It doesn't work. So Saville knew exactly what he was doing. Now, furthermore, he has this thing that he kind of doesn't have a lot of control over, right? He's been given all the artwork. Like, what kind of creative freedom is there for a raging egomaniac like Peter Saville? So he makes a super bold decision not to put type in the cover. He explains it in a self-deprecating, obvious way, but really he ends up making a super wise decision, because you'll hear people like Thurston Moore. He bought that record off the cover. He's flipping through the stacks, sees this cover, no type on it, this strange little white graphic on a black background, and he grabs it. And it works. The anchor for this record was everything being missing. It not being bold, it not being over the top, it not being colorful, it not even telling itself what it is. You flip it over, and there's this very narrow column of type, super delicately placed. Essentially, it looks like credits. It is credits. It has a very clear relationship to the size and scale of the cover, and it's just in beautifully set Helvetica in a very Swiss style. On the one hand, it's a completely obvious decision. On the other hand, it's skillfully handled and beautiful. And then when you pull the sleeve out, you have like the lyrics printed on one side, and you have the photo, again, placed fairly small on the other side. So Saville comes into this thing. Everything is in play. Like, what is he going to do? There's no creative freedom. There's already a cover picked. There's already this other image picked. So everything that he does is about doing the most amazing job possible with what little is there to work with, and not letting his ego get in the way of making the thing as good as it can possibly be. And Saville goes on to be, one of the most influential, one of the most influential graphic designers ever, and certainly one of the most influential record cover designers ever. And all of that hinges off of making the best possible decisions in service of the work. It would have been really easy for him to do his first record cover he's like, okay, they got this graphic, let me blow it up. Let me make the type really big. Let me make it obvious. Let me do all of this stuff that most people would do, because their ego would be like, well, you don't have creative freedom. Why are you trying so hard? And instead, he does a beautiful job despite having no creative freedom, despite having to work with what is already sitting there right in front of him. So, something to think about.